Go.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast.
It's podcast.
To the Cinna Sisters podcast. We're pretty much going to jump right into it tonight because Laura and I both just saw Annihilation, and I saw it 24 hours ago, and I've been wanting to talk to her since, so I'm really glad she went and saw it tonight, February 23rd.
We literally just got back. Jake is joining us on the podcast today, my husband Jake, because he watched it with me and he has things to say.
Hey guys, what's up?
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, so yeah, I've been spending most of my afternoon watching Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, so I gotta switch tactics here now. But I'm into it. This is a movie that's been hyped for a while. Natalie Portman's in it. It's by the director Alex Gardner, and he did Ex Machina. I don't know if you guys ever saw that. But it's a pretty cool film. It's based off of a trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. It's filmed in London. The swamp scenes are near Windsor Great Park, you know.
Are you talking about Annihilation?
I'm talking about Annihilation.
I didn't know that.
What did you think I was talking about?
You said he was directed by someone else, and then I thought you were talking about another movie he directed.
Well, Alex, yeah, he directed Ex Machina.
And then I thought you were going into Ex Machina.
No. I was just saying that's point of reference. Sorry if that wasn't clear.
It's late. It's Friday. My brain is like mush.
We can do this. We can power through. This must have been a good film to watch then with a mushy brain.
No.
It just made my brain more mushy.
Oh, good. Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I don't know if you want to give a brief talk about what it's about and then go into it, because I have things to say, but I don't want to just like without people understanding what this is about.
We can give like a brief overview real quick.
Okay, Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time in this movie, Natalie Portman is the main actress, and she's a really smart doctor lady who teaches at Johns Hopkins, and her husband are both military. Well, her husband goes on a mission, and he's been gone for a year, and she's like, where have you been at? And then all of a sudden, he's like just back in her room, and he's super weird, and then he gets sick, and she gets to this like crazy facility where they're doing tests and stuff, and they see this big, shiny fog thing out in the distance.
Yeah, so a number of years back, maybe 3 or 4, it looks like a meteor hits this lighthouse, and you see what the research facility calls the Shimmer. And the Shimmer is something that's growing, and every time they send teams into the Shimmer to learn about what's happened, they don't come out. The first person who comes out is Kane, Natalie Portman's husband. Her name's Lena in the film. He comes out. No one knows how he got out. He doesn't remember anything. But this is kind of their first indication that, you know, it's possible to get out of the Shimmer. But he gets very sick. So that's why Natalie Portman goes to this facility and finds out that they're going to send a team of scientists into the Shimmer rather than soldiers to see if the scientists can't figure it out. The problem's been that every time they go into the Shimmer, all their comms go down. They can't communicate back with the research facility. So there's just no information getting back to folks, which is just surprising to me that they keep sending people in with kind of the same
Einstein's definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again while expecting a different result. They'd be crazy.
Exactly. And so I guess their big difference here is they're going to send scientists in, which happen to be all women, which I think is pretty cool. I also appreciate the fact that it wasn't like this big thing that needed to be explained. Like Natalie Portman's character like comments on it. Oh, like it's all women going in this time, but that's just where the buck stops. It's
lucky for them,
scientists.
Natalie Portman is a soldier and a scientist.
And a killer shot.
So she knows how to protect the group. But
she uses a pretty good job with a machine gun. She's shooting that thing and her eyes don't blink once. It's crazy. Yeah. She did a really good job.
So they go into the shimmer thing. It's almost like a portal. Like you walk through it and then it's like, whoa, weird.
Yeah, so they discover that the world is very different inside the shimmer.
Everything be having sex with everything.
The physicist in the team explains that when they figure it out, after the first few days that they're in there, their memory's completely gone. They kind of end up having these blackout periods, but what they discover is the cells within the shimmer are being refracted, kind of like when light hits a prism and a rainbow spurts out. And so what you see in this world is plants that can grow into the form of humans. They just kind of look like human-shaped plants.
Everything can have sex with everything.
That's not what this is.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
That's what everything is.
That's not what
Tara.
refraction is.
Their DNA mixes sex.
That's not how sex works either.
Tara, there's a scene in the movie where the plants are shaped like people, and they explain... What if you crossbred a plant with a human?
They explained that it wasn't crossbreeding, though.
Yeah.
She's
sex with a plant.
Okay.
Basically, if a plant and a human had sex, they would look like a plant human.
No, that's not what that meant at all.
Yeah.
Natalie Portman's character clearly said that's not possible to crossbreed that. What's happening is...
None of that stuff is possible in that fragment, so... Boom.
Fair, but it's not crossbreeding.
Well, then why is there a cow bear?
It's not a cow bear. Okay, do we want to continue going through this real quick and then get back to this?
Okay, yeah.
Because I'm gonna wring your neck virtually right now. You're wrong. You don't get it.
You don't get it.
Cow bear.
No.
It was a cow bear.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, so anyways, everything has sex with everything, and there's plants that have people, and there's a cow that's a bear, and they're in this fragmented area, and they're trying to get to the lighthouse. That's the goal.
Yes, because this is where they feel like this phenomenon has originated, because that's where this meteor hit, and all the expansion of the shimmer is equidistant to the lighthouse.
And the whole time, you think that Natalie Portman is going in there to find... Well, I thought she was going in there to find a cure for her husband. No. Turns out she just feels guilty. Because she was cheating on him.
She did the dirty with a different dude.
And he found out.
Yep.
Boom. Hashtag problem.
That's what we got. Okay. Anyway.
Just laugh happy.
Each of the members of the scientific team do end up dying except for Lena, or Natalie Portman in this case. You kind of learn that they're going to die within the first 2 minutes of the film because she's in some holding cell with a dude in a hazmat suit trying to figure out what happened to her, because she's been in there for 4 months instead of the predetermined 2 weeks that the mission was supposed to take. So it kind of sets it all up so you know what's going to happen a little bit, but I think it does a really good job in keeping the tension throughout the film with all of the unexpected monsters and
there was one monster. There was 2 monsters. There was 3 monsters.
I like how this list keeps growing.
Okay. Do you want me to explain all the deaths?
Yeah, explain all the deaths. Seem excited about that.
Well, I'll explain all the monsters. So monster number 1, they're traveling in the shimmer and they see this house. They go in. It's flooded. Boom. One of the girls gets dragged under the water. Boom, 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 gun, gun, gun. Turns out to be this gigantic crossbreed between a shark and a crocodile. Alligator. They killed it. They're safe. Okay, that one doesn't kill anyone. But then at night, they're just hanging out, and boom, something grabs their friend, and she's gone. Turns out to be this bear that's like a cow. It's a cow bear, a cow face with a bear.
I don't know where you get the cow. The face is not cow-like. It's a jaw. It's like just a bones.
It's like a cow.
It's a skull
of
of
a
a
cow.
cow. Like it's a skull of.
How can you tell it's a cow?
It's
Because science, Tara.
Yeah, Tara. Science
Biology.
is on our side.
We Googled
And
it.
we all know that science in this movie
We Googled a cow.
is completely
yeah.
credible.
It's okay. It's the same thing in Texas.
The longhorn?
Yeah, that's what that was.
Not necessarily longhorn, just
Cow.
Yeah, you guys are real well versed in your cow skulls.
So,
huh?
anyways,
okay,
this
then
thing
I'm buying
is
this.
crazy.
Let's keep going.
This thing is crazy because it's like it's got cow spots and it's a bear.
No. Stop that. And did you notice how it had multiple jaws on its head? Like it wasn't, you can't say it was a cow and a bear when it had like jaws for ears.
I didn't see that part.
Oh, Jesus.
But the thing is, this
I'm losing
thing,
my fucking mind here.
this moo bear, it
Oh,
screams. It screams like a woman, right?
No, it screams like the geologist. So it
Yeah,
initially
who is a woman.
dragged off the geologist, and as she dies, she's screaming. And so what it seems like is that her last essence bled into this monster, and so every time it made a noise, it was making her screams that happened when she died. How does that work for crossbreeding, Laura?
Oh well, you see, he basically in the mutations of them take on characteristics. Because when you have parents, you have like we sound like our mom, so he sounds like her now.
Okay, keep going with the next death.
Okay, the next monster is the monster of all monsters, and this is the main woman who has started this whole exhibition for 3 years. Psychologist, and her death is killed by an alien.
Well,
She's an
everyone
alien.
dies, though. How does the physicist decides to just kind of become one with the nature?
Yeah.
She was going through. So each of these, a big theme throughout this film is self-destruction, and so part of the compelling nature of the individual characters is the fact that they each are a little bit self-destructive, and they're each going into the shimmer for a particular reason. I mean, you have to be pretty. Have to have a pretty bleak outlook on life to go into a shimmer that no one has yet successily come out of.
Has a 99%
person.
kill rate.
or some serious curiosity problems.
Yeah.
Well, at least the writing of the film suggests that it's more the self-destruction side. So you got the psychologist who has a tumor or cancer or something and is dying anyway, so she's thinking, well, I might as well know what's happening in there. The geologist, her daughter died, so she's very depressed, doesn't feel like she has much to live for. The physicist is going through some sort of existential crisis. She's been very self-harming in her past. And the paramedic, no one really knows what her deal is.
She's
but
an alcoholic.
Oh, is she the one who's the alcoholic?
Yes.
That's right. Okay. I thought, and she also no one knows anything about her family or whatever, too, right?
No.
No,
that's the psychologist.
Okay, so it's not just the tumor, it's also she has no family or friends. Okay.
Yeah. And then Natalie Portman, Lena, she's a cheater.
Yeah, so she's going in because she feels like she owes her husband since he went in on the mission, primarily because she thinks he found out about the cheating, and so he kind of was like, fine, run away to this
So explain
shimmer.
how this thing ends, because I still don't even get it.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best because it's a whole thing. So Natalie Portman finally makes it to the lighthouse. It's on the beach. The trees look like all of these magnificent prisms or crystalline sort of structures, which are it's a really neat thing that she's walking into. But inside the lighthouse, she sees a kind of a torch skeleton in the corner, and a video camera set up. She watches the video that was recorded and sees that it's her husband. He's going through he's having a conversation with someone. He's like, I don't know who I am. Am I you? Are you me? Kind of, where does the line draw? And he's like, well, you just tell my wife, like, Lena, I don't know, find my wife, Lena, or something like that. And he pulls a flash grenade and torches himself to death. She thinks she's just watched her husband die, but then she sees a man who looks exactly like her husband walk into the frame. And that's the man who ends up making it out of the shimmer, who she thinks is dying in the hospital right now. So something's happening where within the lighthouse, genes can be replicated, and you can, and a clone situation can take place. She goes further into the lighthouse, and she sees the psychologist there who has this tumor. She's dying anyway. The psychologist talks about self-destruction and annihilation, and just sort of this natural response in the world to annihilate. She kind of implodes into something that looks like some sort of like a star collapsing in on itself almost.
Something you would see if you were high.
Exactly, sure. Which I think may be the way to see this movie. But it's imploding into itself. It's very beautiful. I mean, don't get me wrong. Whatever's happening is very beautiful, but
very artistic.
It's very artistic, and you see Natalie Portman's character Lena has this driplet of blood that kind of falls into the collapsing star. That's what I'm calling it, and it then transforms into this figure, this shape. It doesn't have a face.
Looks like the Blue Man Group.
It looks like the Blue Man Group made of like some sort of tinsel.
Yeah, shiny Blue Man Group.
Yeah, and it's tall and frail looking, but Lena ends up running out of trying to escape the lighthouse. This thing follows her, and it's mirroring everything she does, from down to her panted breathing even, and it's just kind of this weird, it's almost, it seems to me like some sort of strange modern dance is happening between the two of them, as they almost fight for space in what this reality is. What happens is Lena grabs the flash grenade, another one that's lying next to the, singed body in the corner, and pulls, and she ends up briefly touching this figure, and you kind of see this bleed effect happen where Lena bleeds into the figure, and the figure takes on her exact persona. Lena pulls the flash grenade, runs the hell out, and
everything burns.
Everything burns, but it's almost like this thing is actually committing suicide too, because it crawls into the epicenter of where this all began and lets the whole thing light up on fire, and everything that was created kind of burns to the ground and turns to ashes. And so then, this whole time, this is all framed from Lena sitting in a room with this guy in a hazmat suit explaining what she can remember. A lot of it she doesn't, because a lot of it, I feel like I've never seen a film use the term "I don't know"
so
this many times, and not with any irony. I'm just like, why is this a device? If you don't know, how can anyone know? But anyway, she's sitting there. She happens to have, you see that she looks a little bit different. She has the tattoo on her arm of the paramedic who died. It's all very strange. She's rattled. They, buy into her story as much as they can. She goes to see her husband, who's now well, now that the whole thing has kind of burned to the ground. And she, knowing that he's not her husband, and, she asks him, "Are you Kane?" And he's like, "I don't think so." And, they embrace, and you see kind of the shimmer happen in both their eyes, and the film ends. So it kind of leaves path for a sequel. You kind of don't know if Lena's really Lena, or what she is at this point, because you did in fact see that figure that she interacted with blow up. So, what's up, what's down, what's happening here? We don't know. And they don't know a lot in the film.
They don't know a lot. I don't know.
When Kane first comes home, she's asking him all these questions. He just keeps saying, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know." When she's in the room getting interviewed, a lot of her responses are, "I don't know, I don't know, I don't know."
There's even a scene where it's starting to end, and they ask her a question, and the camera like zooms in, like she just had this aha moment,
mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden she just looks at the camera, like down and then up. "I don't know," but says it like that. "I don't know," as if, oh, plot twist. Nobody knows anything.
What a twist. I mean, and this is kind of the thing, is I walked out of that film last night, and Ryan, my husband, was asking me, like, "So what did you think? What did you think?" And I'm like, the best I can give this film is an "I don't know." I think it's only fair.
I can give you a... Ugh.
Really?
Oh, I did not like it.
Not at all, huh? Why?
It was so boring.
I didn't think it was boring at all.
It was so boring to me. And there were 3 jumpy parts. That's it. 3. And then
You gotta admit that whole scene with the figure was pretty bizarre. And
yeah,
when
it
they
wasn't
crawl,
scary though. It was
no,
just
but
like,
when she
that's
crawls
weird.
into the hole where the psychiatrist is about to die, and her face is like half missing and everything, that's creepy too. Come on.
I think by that point I was just so annoyed at how long the movie was dragging on that I didn't even want to be like, yeah, that's cool. It was like, oh, you took your face off. Good for you. Oh, I'm Helen. Oh, wow.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Here's what I think. I think it gives us a lot to think about, and I've had the past 24 hours to sit on it. I think it's beautifully filmed and acted. I think it's also pretty nihilistic. Just with this whole theme of self-destruction and annihilation. And so I think it's a puzzle. Keeps me steeped in thought. I'm not opposed to that.
I wouldn't say it was a horror film, though.
That's what it's being classified as.
From who?
From the people who classify films.
Not the Cinecistas. Not one of the Cinecista.
Just, I mean, I think it's a horror film, but not in the... It's like Alien or Predator or something like that, you know. That those don't.
Sci-fi.
It's just, but those are horror films.
Oh.
But it's making me it's making me think a lot about things. It's making me want to discuss a few things. But I do really feel like I walked, and but I do feel like it's almost like the director wanted us to walk away just being like, I don't know, as a big theme, because why else use that as a key frame of dialogue? But okay, so a couple of things I want to talk about. So do you think, like, with this theme, what do you think about this whole nature of humanity trying to self-destruct?
I don't know.
Oh, how fitting. How fitting.
Very well said.
I need more time to think about it.
Okay.
Jake?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So a lot of the movie is, like, they talk a lot of, especially when Lena meets with the psychiatrist outside, and the psychiatrist is talking about how this is human nature to self-destruct. What do you buy into that? What do you think?
I mean, she did mention the part where she said that in our human anatomy, in our DNA, you know, people see us as, you know, our cells that are supposed to deteriorate.
You got it.
Deteriorate and die. But she says that that's actually a flaw, and that in reality, cells multiply and continue to multiply, so that actually portrays somewhat of immortality, that they continue to multiply and they never stop multiplying. But our cells deteriorate, and that's actually a flaw. So in reality, we should be immortal. And so that was one of the things she talked about, how self-destruct is in our genes, because somewhere in our genes we have that flaw where we are self-destructing. We eventually grow old and cripple and die, which, you know, is a bummer. However, I don't necessarily agree with that, just because, like, I think that's just part of the movie, and I think that's a cool idea that came with the movie, but I don't agree with that. I don't think
you don't agree with the science of cells being immortal, or
no,
okay.
Like, I don't think
well, that's
the cells...
just true.
Yeah.
You can't
like, I don't think there's just, like, this perfect, like, if we can just, like, flip one switch in a cell and all of a sudden we really are immortal. You know, I don't think that's real or true, or I don't think there's any backing to that, but it's an interesting concept and a thoughtful one at that.
Well, I think it's not necessarily meant to be true. It's just meant to, if you look at how cells operate, they just keep dividing all the time, right? And I think that if you think that within life, you have to self-destruct, or you just keep, you know what I mean? You would keep going and there wouldn't be space for you. And it's almost like, so you could even like take it to, I was reading an article about it today, and I was even trying to parallel this even to how we as humans occupy this space here, and our tendencies, even with like the environment and everything, are to self-destruct. Like we keep pumping out pollutants, we keep building shit, we keep consuming garbage, on and on and on. And we're just speeding along our self-destruction. Is this at a certain point is the nature of this world to annihilate at a certain point? Because what does that do? Does that start something fresh? Was this whole thing starting something fresh, or was it is it kind of speeding up the process of annihilation here? I think that's kind of where this big question hangs over the film, right?
Mind blown.
But it did make me think, okay, so this is what it made me think about next. So it made me think about the existential crises that hit up in I Heart Huckabees.
Love that movie.
So this is how I think about, yes, so maybe this will help you understand what was happening a little bit. So, you know, in I Heart Huckabees, where they're talking about, like, they've got kind of these two forms of thought where either we are nothing or we are everything. And when we are everything, like, I'm part of the computer, and the computer is part of the bed, and so the bed's back and part of me, and, like, all of these, we're just made up of all these little parts, and they just, because it's all there, the cells can, like, intertwine and become one, right? So when you think about, like, either or, you can take the other side of that as we are nothing and meaningless, right? Like, the whole world is gonna, it's just all random and meaningless, and then it's gonna blow up in the end, burn to ashes. So we have, like, this world of order, ours, being invaded by something alien, the Shimmer. And with the Shimmer refracting the cells, as they called it, they're now bleeding into one another, kind of in a way that our order doesn't explain, but maybe that existential theory in I Heart Huckabees does, where it's just like, what you're finally seeing is, like, if you're watercoloring, right? And you get two colors next to one another and they finally touch, then in that center form is a new color that hits. It's just like when a rainbow goes out. There are infinite numbers of colors, and they're all bleeding into one another. That's why you see, like... Okay.
Or they, like, bleed into each other as, like, when a man and a woman love each other very much.
We know where Laura's head's at.
No, I don't. Where is it at?
When a man and a woman love each other very much, sometimes he and she will, almost as you say, bleed into one another.
I just think one's bleeding into the other in that case, but, you know.
Yeah,
I see your fingers working their magic. They're trying to display what's happening. I get it, but I'm gonna keep railing on this because
that's how babies are made.
Okay, but like,
fraction.
let's think about this where Lena touches her duplicate and you see, like, it bleed over into the duplicate. To me, that means, like, what happens is that somehow the figure also had to bleed back into Lena in that case. Like, you can't touch gravy to cranberry sauce without that new point of connection being something entirely new. And you can't take that and then separate it back out again. It's gonna be, like, a gravy sauce and not a cranberry sauce or gravy anymore. It's something new. And so that's what... So I think Lena's still Lena right now. But what that point at which they touched allowed the Shimmer to come into her as well. And so the Shimmer, that's why at the end you see her eyes kind of refract with that shimmery light.
So that's why that would explain why Kane, when he comes back and he's the alien, he says, like, he remembers her face.
Yeah, like he recognizes part. So part of them are just kind of like bleeding into one another in a sense, but it's not all getting there. Some of it's getting there, some of it's not. But
it's like they're the baby of themselves.
So, yeah, no. What? Yeah.
The Shimmer becomes the shimmy.
See, his didn't make any sense. Mine made a little because it made you go, yeah, what? So kind of.
I don't know anymore.
What's the next step?
I get your point. I think that's a good point.
Here's what I'm wondering is, do you think that the Shimmer then became more self-destructive because it was born, like, not the Shimmer, but the figure that's mirroring Lena? I'm wondering if, like,
I
because
get
it was
where you're going with this.
Because it was born out of the psychiatrist who had cancer, and you kind of see, like, these cancerous cells and stuff, they show that. is the Shimmer now with cancer, and is the reason that it ended up burning itself up because it saw its own death in the cancer that had just consumed?
Or has the Shimmer taken on every single trait of everything? And all the people that have come into the Shimmer have introduced self-destruction, what the Shimmer have never had before, because it just keeps creating. But then these self-destructive cells that are a flaw only in human anatomy come in, and so the Shimmer keeps taking on those traits and then ultimately self-destructs because it's like, what?
Maybe. It just freaked the fuck out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it.
My thoughts are that there were a lot of things that were not explained.
I know. It's super irritating.
Like, why? I thought they could have done something cool with the whole tattoo thing. Because she didn't have the... So one of
the paramedic
the paramedic has this
Anya.
figure 8 tattoo. A big tattoo that's very noticeable. And all of a sudden, Natalie Portman has it. And they keep showing her arm and we know that she didn't have it before. But that's pretty much all. She doesn't even acknowledge that she has the tattoo.
So
Nobody knows.
But remember when they're paddling in the water and she looks down on her arm and she thinks she's bruised herself from shooting? And then later on she pricks that spot to test her own blood, and that's where she sees kind of the cells acting strangely.
So does that mean she was taking on the other girl's skin?
No, it means that it's kind of like they were bleeding into one another again, right? So because they were these what's happening is within the Shimmer, the cells are all being refracted, so they're being bent into different directions.
Because before it was all men that went in together. This time it's all women that went in together. If men and women went in together, does that mean women could have started having facial hair all of a sudden? Like, what? He has a beard, now I have a beard.
I guess
on my face. So it's like that, though?
Yeah, sure. But it's not necessarily just their bearded parts, because it seems to me that even the paramedic started taking on traits of the physicist's personality. Because you see her starting to act weirder and weirder, and part of that is her being, like, a little bit more reserved, and, like, you see her kind of, like, her body language changes, too. So to me, it felt like she was taking on some of the physicist's kind of very introverted, scared tendencies.
They're all just absorbing each other.
And, yeah, I think it's just kind of, you're not fully yourself anymore, but you're taking on the elements of those around you. I mean, the physicist ended up really connecting with the plant life for whatever reason, and
really connecting.
She ended up turning into a plant person at that point because she just didn't want to keep going.
Which that doesn't make sense. Why did she all of a sudden have the power to control? She's like, I'm just gonna become a plant person. I'm a plant now.
I don't know.
Yeah, because she had to do the deed with the plant. It's all about. They're all having sex with each other, Tara. And that's how she became the plant.
Okay. All right, everyone. Annihilation is about everything and everyone having sex with one another, and therefore just creating different random things.
Lora wins.
It's mostly about a cow bear.
Cow bear.
A moo bear.
Moo bear.
That actually has a pretty epic scene that rips
Anya's jaw off
to shreds.
Almost as good as the Revenant.
The Revenant. Yeah, she gets ripped up close. Just like that.
Just like that.
But see, and I'm wondering if, like, that's the bear's killing tactic too, is ripping jaws off, because its face had multiple, like, jaws on it.
Yeah, I didn't notice that part. I'll have to look up a picture.
I saw, like, multiple eye holes and, like, multiple aspects of faces on there. I didn't notice any, like, specific jaws, but you noticed that there was, because it did have the form of a farmhouse type animal, whether it was a horse or a cow or something type skull, and had those large eye holes up higher, but then it also had smaller eye holes which actually had eyes in them lower towards the nose that looked more kind of human like. And so it was very kind of very creative.
It was a creative monster. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'll share my 2 bits.
Please do.
I thought it was a very creative and artistic movie. Specifically, one of those parts I thought like that's amazing, very sad and depressing, but amazing is when they do cut the guy's stomach open. He's got that worm changing inside of him, but then they end up finding him where he is.
Yeah.
And he's completely separated, and there's that huge, looks like a mural of just colors and shapes and growth inside there. It was kind of interesting because it was like a beautiful but sad and depressing thing that happened, yet there's all this amazingness that came from it. So I thought the artistic part of it was really cool with all the colors and the idea of different things coming together to form something beautiful. But I did get kind of lost towards the end there, and I think it could have been ended better. And yes, I think if the director's goal was to have everybody walk out with a big old question mark above their head, he succeeded. So.
Yeah, and so I think this film is gonna appeal to people differently. Like if you're into a film that's really gonna, again, leave it up to you to resolve a lot of the random holes that might be missing. If you like thinking through that, this is gonna work well for you. If you want the film to be a little bit more linear and give you a direct story, this may not do that
and
for
closure?
you.
No, it's not going to give you closure.
Yeah, no closure.
No, there's not a lot of closure.
I didn't think it needed to be as long as it was.
No, it could have been shorter.
It was like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I think so.
What I would have loved to have seen is one of the military guys that have gone in before, that they would have found one that was actually still alive and had it even, mutated or changed or been mixed
as
even
a monster
further, and is somewhat like encompassed with like a different type of animal or something, and yet he's still conscious but not fully conscious as a human being, and just kind of like played with that idea. That would have been kind of cool, I think.
I think that I think what part of the point is of none of these people being able to survive it is that like our bodies couldn't take it, right? Like it'd have to transform so perfectly for our organs to keep working well or whatever if you're getting intermingled with a plant, for example. Like it's just not gonna work. I don't know. I think it's an interesting. I think that like at the end she says, and we don't know if she's Lena or she's the Shimmer or if she's, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. But she says something about, I don't think it was because they're trying to like figure out what this thing is doing. What does it want? They clearly all believe it's a sentient being of some sort that has to have a motive. And she's like, I don't think it was destroying anything. I think it was creating something. But the whole like, all the buildup is about annihilation and self-destruction. And so you're like, do I believe her when she says it was a creation thing? Or is it really like destruction that we aren't getting to? Like, are we moving closer to the sun situation kind of thing?
Well, because there's an interesting part in the dance between the clone and her where the clone knocks her out and then kind of is like standing there watching her, almost to me as if it knows what it did.
Yeah.
And it's trying to trick her. Like, I felt more like it was copying her to trick her than it was as, like, a curiosity.
Well, and also remember that when the psychologist is in the epicenter of where the comet had gone, and she's there with kind of the deformed face, but then she comes back and she's speaking to Lena, she actually tells her what she knows, what it wants, and it wants to deconstruct everything, and wants to pull us all apart, and wants to... That's what she says, that she now knows what it wants.
And she says annihilation.
Yeah, she says annihilation. So
yeah.
And whether she's saying that because she misinterpreted what it actually wants or not, or whether that actually did portray it through her, that's what it sounded like the goal actually was.
Yeah, and I'll say it again. I don't know.
I don't know.
We'll never know.
I don't know.
Because I really don't think there's going to be a second one, but...
There might be. I mean, there's 3 books in the series, though I understand that the film definitely departed from what the book was, but I'll give it this. It was very compelling food for thought, I suppose, and it left me pretty lit.
How do you rate it?
After. I don't know.
No. You rated The Fourth Kind, I think, a 3. So,
Which is
rate it.
ridiculous.
This is definitely better than The Fourth Kind.
Okay, what is the rating?
But here's the thing. I go between, like, it being like an 8 and it being a 5 sort of thing. Like, I can't...
So,
because
a 6.5?
No, because it's not in the middle of that either. It's either, like, really just amazing and blowing my mind, or it's frustrating and filled with holes that no one's ever going to be able to put concrete in.
For me, I was bored most of the time. So I would give it, like, a 3.
Okay, so this is your Fourth Kind.
4.
And this is my Fourth Kind.
Holy shit.
But I don't like these kind of movies. Like,
yeah.
It was too slow for me, and it was too science-y. So I think, like, for me, the Interstellar, do you remember that
I did
one?
not see that. I can't watch space movies. It takes too long.
Great movie.
See, Jake loved that movie. I was
Isn't
so
that like
bored.
12 hours long?
Not that long.
It's like...
I think it is.
Yeah.
Like 2.5.
But
It's the same
I
as
just
12.
was so bored.
This
But
one was
it's-
2.5 too.
Yeah. Anyways, that's not my style.
That's
But
cool.
I really loved the pretty little deer with the tree antlers.
I like the tree. I like the plant people.
They were cool.
They're pretty cool.
Put
And I
some
think
of
the
those in my
crocodile was
backyard.
pretty kick-ass.
I thought the cow bear was pretty scary, so
Listen, so did you ever see Arrival?
Yes.
loved that
Good movie.
one.
See, to me, this was up there. Like, it could be like Arrival. It's just, I can't make up my mind.
Arrival was better at moving things along.
True, I agree.
I don't know, because I was kind of bored during Arrival, but I liked it.
But Arrival, it resolves. Like, it all
No,
comes
it definitely
together.
resolves. No.
So
I
maybe
that's why I'm like,
I
this
think
is
that's
kind
why
of-
you go, whoa, at the end of Arrival. With this, that's probably where there was no whoa factor, where I was like, that makes sense, and I went through all of that for a reason. With Arrival, you go through all of that for a reason. There's an end result, and you're like, okay, that journey made sense and needed to happen. With this, I'm like, nuh-uh.
I agree with her because like the twist at the end of Arrival is a really cool twist that really brings everything together, that she had been seeing her future the whole time, and holy cow,
Right.
that's what she was seeing. And the twist was, oh, her husband is actually dead, and her husband, who she thinks her husband, is actually an alien.
But is he an alien?
But
I
is
don't
he
know.
an alien? It's
Did
like-
they just intertwine to become
And it didn't
one?
really matter whether he was or not. Like, it could have been her husband for real.
No, I'm totally in line with you guys. I'm just saying, like, here's where I get to is like, it has, if they continue on with this, like if there's gonna be a part 2 Annihilation, like this has the potential to be not unlike the Arrival, because I feel like
Yeah, maybe
just
if they
with
could bring it
the
together.
pacing of it all and everything, it felt very similar. It felt like a very, to me, like, again, if I can make up my mind, it felt like a very, just like one of the more unique alien stories that's been told before, and Arrival was definitely that.
Yeah.
This, I think, is that. It's just whether or not I'm okay with how it was done, and I think I am, but then I think I'm not.
Well, Cinesister fans,
You
Can
got
we tell you?
You got some
Can we
distinct
tell you?
perspectives.
will you like this movie? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's all we
Nobody
do
knows.
know.
So
But
basically,
here's what
you just
you-
go figure it out.
Here's what you can know, is you've got some very different takes on it. So if you tend to agree or align with one or the other of these takes, you'll know whether or not to go see the film. For someone like me, I think it's very worth seeing in theater because it is just beautiful.
Yeah, for me, it's a solid red box.
It's a solid red box, yeah. I'd
Hey,
say
it's actually going to come out on Netflix internationally after its theater run.
solid Netflix
So,
show.
you know,
Yeah.
especially if you've got one of those really fancy TVs.
Ding, ding, ding,
It might
ding,
look better, you know,
ding. There's the bell.
4K.
There's that bell. Do you know what time it is?
Time
Tara,
to...
no,
Oh,
you
sorry.
don't know.
I don't know. Sorry.
You listen to our podcast.
I'm
more.
sorry.
You don't know what that bell means. It's Grim Tara. It's Tara's Grim Corner. Grim Stories with Tara. She didn't get a grim story.
I didn't get a grim story. So for those of you
Disappointed.
listening, if you don't know, weekly I tend to pull from the book of the Grimm brothers stories and retell the story so you can hear how crazy those stories were. But I did not do it this week. I figure we filled the time on the podcast well, and maybe we should just end it here. And we'll reconvene with Grim Corner next week.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Fair.
And we can go to bed.
Yes, queen.
Yes. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Let us know what you think of Annihilation.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.